So it's sort of an oblique way to say we are focusing our work on fixing the problem as quickly as possible in Sioux Falls. Both agencies certainly can talk about mine extensively, but we are focusing on that, and I'm focusing on the big picture of how we do better as a state moving forward. And that's really my big goal is coming in as commissioners. How do we take this great agency and many great agencies that we work with and kind of align all of our interests more effectively? That's really the most important thing that we could give to the state over the long term.
I appreciate that. I'm also a big believer that when something goes wrong, it's worth taking some time to go after action, support, and really understand.
I completely agree.
All of those, and I would like to have more clarity on sort of who's the point on that and when we should expect information from that moving forward. Similarly, the governor has set extraordinarily admirable and ambitious greenhouse gas emission reduction goals by 2030 and 2050. I know in 2010 for the interim climate action plan, DEC was the lead agency there. Is it your view, as you are confirmed in this position, that DEC continues to be sort of the lead agency in tracking, measuring, and pushing towards those goals, or is there a different one? Is DEC no longer involved in this?
Well, I think we're very much involved in carrying out the governor's goals on climate change. I'm certainly familiar with the 2010 Climate Action Plan. In my view, we are doing everything and more as to what the Climate Action Plan had envisioned. We now have multiple state agencies pulling all in the same direction, not only to achieve goals, but we are meaningfully reforming the way in which we approach the energy sector. And DEC's role is somewhat more limited when it comes to energy, but we have achieved a number of significant reductions in emissions over the last few years based on DEC's leadership of the REG program. We are looking at certainly interagency coordination on how we will achieve the larger 50% goals, reductions in carbon emissions. That's going to be in DEC's wheelhouse. And the all-important resiliency side of the coin as well. I was with the department, was with the governor's office during Superstorm Sandy, and at that point we hatched the view of the 2100 Commission, which has now led to many of the things that we're doing as an agency. It dictated how we chose to spend the money after Sandy, the resiliency money, and then green infrastructure, making communities stronger. It's also influenced our participation in the Community Risk and Resiliency Act, an act that was very strong bipartisan support. So we're carrying that out aggressively. We want to make the state, obviously, we want to make it more resilient. We certainly want to reduce our emissions. We want to do so with business in mind. These are great opportunities for the state to take advantage of emerging technologies. We want to make New York the hub of that. We're going to be at the table for all of it. So I think we've moved beyond planning, frankly. We're into implementation, and it's going to be an all-hands-on-deck approach.
I really appreciate that. I really would like to see, especially with the clear goodwill and great attitude already about the job, I would love to see DEC in the driver's seat in a clear way on that plan, and I started working with DEC, and if not DEC, want to know which agencies in the driver's seat. It's an important part of knowing that push forward. On resiliency, I would just say, I appreciate a lot of what's happened, but in my district in Lower Manhattan, we are still literally hundreds of millions of dollars short from protecting Oregon and New York City, one of the largest business districts in America, and we really appreciated the partnership we've had at this point between the city, state, and federal government. We need that partnership with the state to continue moving forward. So I really look forward to working with you and Governor's Office of Storm Recovery. Thank you for taking time.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Squadron. Any other speakers? Then it's my turn. So, and I'm not really going to ask any questions. I just want to thank you, first of all, for coming to my office. We had a very good discussion about a variety of issues, as you remember, staffing, a number of staffing shortages that you may have in the agency, air and water, pollution concerns, things like the scourge that we have right now in the state with invasive species, and you know that's a major problem. Talking about things such as the Environmental Protection Fund and priorities, which this entire legislature strongly supports, as you know so well. Dealing with pollution, air pollution, and acid rain that comes from other states in their power production. all of those are very important issues, and you know, I really appreciate the fact that you took so much time to have that very productive discussion.
Thank you.
I also want to thank you personally because, as you know, my district is in Regions 8 and 9. They do a great job, and also the staff here, people like Julie, who are so responsive. And we had recently, for example, a crisis with an employer, and not only was an environmental disaster averted by your staff working so hard, but also you kept people employed, and that's important to those families. So I just want to say to you, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And oftentimes you want to add to your title, but I think from what we're hearing around the table, we're actually going to remove the word acting today. So that's a good thing. And
That's great.
Senator Little would like to make a motion. Senator Marchione would like to second. Any other seconds on it? Senator Mazzolio, Senator Marcelino, Senator Bonsick, Senator Larkin, Senator Ritchie. You have a lot of support, obviously, around the table. So that's a great thing.
Thank you very much.
All those in favor of moving this nomination to the Senate floor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations. Next, we have appearing Maria T. Bulo, is Superintendent of Financial Services. Ms. Bulo has brought some family members here today. They'll probably be up in the gallery later, so welcome. It's great to have your family here. What I'd like to do is follow the same format. We'll open it up to senators who may have questions. And then I'm sure Senator Kruger, I'm positive Senator Kruger will have some questions, and then I will. And does anyone have any questions? Yes, Senator Kennedy, Senator Savino, Senator Kennedy.
Superintendent, welcome. Thank you, Senator. Congratulations again. I have had the great opportunity to vote for you twice thus far, in banks and in insurance. And I thought that first and foremost, you answered probably better, more eloquently than any other commissioner that we've seen in quite some time. I think you were right to the point, and there is a lot going on within your department, and there has been. I wanted to talk a little bit about that, and if you could just kind of share some of your thoughts on the balance that you discussed. The balance between your job in ensuring the financial stability as well as ensuring the strong relationship with business in the state.
Thank you, Senator, and it's a pleasure to see you again here, and a pleasure to be here before the Committee on Finance. Specific to your question, as I have said, I am both pro-business and pro-consumer. I think those things go hand in hand. I am a proud, lifelong New Yorker. I am proud of New York's status as the financial capital of the world. I want to further support and grow the financial services sector in New York while maintaining the overarching goal of DFS, which is to ensure the fiscal soundness of the institutions and to ensure that all of your constituents are getting the financial services that they deserve, that they believe that they purchased, and to protect them from financial fraud or other market conduct that would not be legal in this state. So I believe in the balance. As I've said, I'm a Libra, and I believe in that, and I'm a lifelong New Yorker, and I'm very committed to the people in this state.
Thank you. As a fellow Libra,
Good day.
So the stars are aligning, Superintendent. So some of the things we talked about. I think it's important that we share this as we move forward. Some of the things we talked about are the not so pretty issues that have transpired in the past, but before your tenure, and Health Republic. And if you could just talk a little bit about where we're at, how we're resolving that, and with your leadership, what we can do in the future. Again, you've already gone through this, but again, I think it's important. I think from a bipartisan perspective, this was a real overarching issue that folks really wanted to hear about. So I figured I'd just bring it up.
Sure. So obviously you're all very familiar with the Health Republic situation. I greatly sympathize with all of your concerns, and obviously the concerns of providers and concerns of constituents with respect to what happened with Health Republic. I have done my best to take control of the situation. I placed Health Republic in liquidation. We are working very, very hard to assess the assets and to evaluate the claims and to do our best as efficiently as possible and as effectively as possible to provide whatever payments we can. It's not going to be more than cents on the dollar, I will be honest about that. But going forward, as I said before, the fiscal soundness of the institutions that are the financial institutions in New York State is my primary obligation. And I take that very seriously. I have instituted systems to ensure that any potential issue of solvency, or it doesn't even have to be at that level, because you should catch things way before that, is brought up to my executive deputy for insurance, who I appointed, and gets brought to my attention. I don't want to look at the past, but I think the Health Republic situation is a very unique one. I don't have another, we do not in New York State have another Health Republic. We don't have another federal co-op. There were particular circumstances in that case that brought it down because it was reliant entirely on federal funding. But again, going forward, that doesn't mean I have a primary obligation to ensure the fiscal health of the institutions, and will do my best to ensure that for the people of the state.
Thank you for your indulgence again, Superintendent. And this is the last thing I bring up, and I think it's important just to reiterate again how well you did in answering the very detailed questions that were brought to your attention in banks and insurance. And a lot of what transpired in the past had to do with transparency, and I know that that is a strong component of your leadership and what you're trying to bring out within DFS. So if you could just speak to the transparency and moving forward, how your operation with your mindset. And again, I'm looking forward to being supportive here.
Yes, thank you, Senator. And so I have begun the process of reaching out to a number of the members of the Senate and to develop what I hope is a partnership to serve the people of New York. And my staff will be equally responsive. When you call, I will answer the phone. When you write, I will respond in writing. And I will, again, make sure that my staff is equally responsive. On transparency, I believe in that. We are working on our website. We are working on a number of things. For example, the public, we have right on our website, and we will provide up-to-date information on an ongoing basis to make sure that we're all working together to serve the people of New York, because that is all of our obligation.
Thank you, Senator Kennedy. I have to apologize because I erred. I did not give you the opportunity to give your remarks, and I'm sure the committee would like to hear what you have to say. So my apologies for that.
I tried to leave some of that in.
I know,
but that's okay.
That's what makes me think of it.
Yeah.
You blended it.
You can skip
It's
all
up
the
to
sections.
you. I can go either way. It's really.
But there are things that you didn't cover yet. I want to
Okay. So I'll just, I'll shorten it, and I'm already said, it's a pleasure for me to be here today I am honored that the governor nominated me for this position, and I'm honored that the committees of banks and insurance moved my nomination to this place. I did want to recognize my two children, Christopher and Maya, who are here.
And my important part. So
Of course. And my two sisters, Lisa and Janet, who are also here today. As I said, I am a lifelong New Yorker. I was raised to be proud to be not only an American, but a New Yorker. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, next door to Senator Lanzer's wife's grandparents. Which we learned during this process. My grandparents were immigrants. My father was a Bronze Star, double Purple Heart World War II veteran. And he was a factory worker following the war. My mother was a homemaker. She raised her 5 children to do what she couldn't do herself, which was to get college degrees. I'm the first person in my extended family to go to law school. I earned all of my degrees from New York institutions, beginning with public elementary school and then high school. I earned my bachelor's degree at the College of Mount St. Vincent in the Bronx, my law degree at New York University School of Law, and also a master's in public administration from NYU's Wagner Graduate School of Public Service. I put myself through college and law school working during school breaks, nights, weekends. Before arriving at DFS, I worked in both the private and the public sectors. I spent 27 years in private practice at one large international law firm. I was elected partner after 7 years, the second woman litigation partner in the firm's history. I handled a broad range of commercial matters in my private practice. I am a trial lawyer. I'm an appellate advocate, and I'm a client counselor. In addition to my billable hours over those years, I committed thousands of hours to pro bono, nonprofit, and bar association activities. At bottom, what my parents taught me was that in life, having an impact means helping another person, even in the smallest way, to have a better life or even a better day. And that's why I'm here in this position before you all. Before and after I was in private practice, I was privileged to serve as Executive Deputy Attorney General for Economic Justice under then Attorney General Andrew Cuomo. I headed the Economic Justice Division, overseeing the bureaus of investor protection, antitrust, real estate, consumer fraud, and the internet. I believe that my combined experiences in both the public and private sectors and in the commercial and financial services industries on both sides of the table have given me a well-rounded, in-depth, and yes, balanced view of our financial markets and our legal system. Should I be privileged to be confirmed as DFS Superintendent, as I mentioned, my overarching goal will be to strengthen New York's status as the financial capital of the world, which includes working to grow the New York financial services sector and have them serve more New Yorkers in all communities across the state, guarding against overly risky decision-making and the absence of proper internal controls, and equally importantly, protecting consumers and our markets from fraud. I want to find solutions to address the needs of the people of New York State. DFS is staffed with immensely talented people at all levels, and I am privileged to have the opportunity to lead them. As I said, I hope to get to know many of you in the months and the years ahead. I believe firmly that open channels of communication between us are good for the people of New York State. So again, I am privileged to be in this position, to have the opportunity to serve the people of New York State as DFS Superintendent, and I'm happy to answer any more questions, whether here today or at any other time that you have some questions.
So that's why I
See you, Senator.
We do have a list. We have a list, and I'm going to tell everybody what it is, and we can add to it. We next have Senator Savino, Mazzolio, Lavelle, Marcelino, Ransohofer, Seward, and Lanza. So, Senator Savino.
Thank you, Senator Young. I will be brief. I too am a Libra. I just want to say congratulations in advance. You did appear before the banking committee last week. Your breadth of knowledge underserved, unbanked, the complications we face with people being able to access, unfortunately, lending online, limitations of state government and our ability to deal with that. I look forward to working with you to solve some of these very complicated problems that New Yorkers face, whether it's subprime lending in the auto industry or continuing foreclosure crisis. And I am very excited to be able to support your nomination. And congratulations in advance.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Nozzolio.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It's a wonderful, compelling story, and one certainly that I identify with and admire a great deal. And the American dream is not dead. It's losing you and others of your background, our background here. My dad was as well. I was just called to another meeting, but the question I have, the answer is not going to depend on my support, because I certainly will support your candidacy, and I'm very pleased that you've taken on this challenge. But Madam Superintendent, the question I have is based on a factual problem that occurred less than 10 months ago, where the largest security breach of any insurer in the state of New York occurred. Over 10 million subscribers in the system of Blue Cross Blue Shield. It's not a day that goes by, or a month that goes by anyway, that there isn't a breach at one of the financial institutions in our state. What are your plans, your focus relative to cybersecurity in ensuring that the integrity of financial services in New York State is maintained?
Senator, that is an incredibly important topic, not only in the nation, but in New York State, and certainly in the financial institutions, because a cyber attack by those that want to hurt the United States could very well be to the financial sector. And of course, the protection of the personal data that financial institutions hold of ordinary people is not only an imposition to them, but also a breach of their privacy, but also has serious ramifications for identity theft and other problems. We are keenly focused, and I am keenly focused on cybersecurity. We have, we have a team at DFS at very high levels looking at the issue. I have taken a trip to Washington, D.C., and I've met with my federal counterparts at the highest levels who are addressing these issues. We have worked with our institutions and asked them to provide us with information as to what they're doing in cybersecurity. We have reached out to consultants and those in the business to understand what are the things that a good cybersecurity program should have. I don't know yet exactly what we will do, whether we will go out with regulations or guidance or something else. I believe that it's critical for us to understand what the issues are and how to not be overly prescriptive, because this is a technological issue that is ever changing and is obviously something, and we're also working at DFS statewide with the other agencies, because there is a overarching issue in state government to also protect the security of our systems. So not just those of the financial institutions that I regulate, but the systems that I have that also has data. So we are on top of this. I've spent a good amount of time, and I have senior level staff really focused on this issue.
We have concerns, Madam Superintendent, about the state of New York and its abilities itself. But certainly, you may help pull our state government along in this endeavor. But your focused attention is critical, and as you indicate, the most private information are the citizens of the state are at risk, and certainly the integrity of the institutions that you regulate are at risk. So you'll certainly have support here in the legislature, and I welcome your focused attention on this issue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Lavelle.
Thank I was reading through your resume, and it's quite impeccable, it's quite noteworthy as I look through it. Administrative experience? Do you have any administrative experience?
Well, I served, as I said, in a senior level at the Attorney General's office, managing about 300 people there. My law firm is a very large law firm, and I had leadership roles at the firm, which was not only managing a legal practice, but also a business that had over 2,000 people. And you know, in the private sector work that I did, I managed large teams on very significant matters. And while it's only education, I also have, as I mentioned, a master's in public administration.
I saw that. Yeah. I was actually not going to ask you a question because your background was so impressive. But as you were talking, and I just wanted to make sure that I heard you correctly, on the issue of Health Republic, you made a point of saying, well, that was in the past, and you wanted to move forward. Is that correct?
What I believe I said was that rather than speak about the past, I wanted to move forward. That doesn't mean that the past is not relevant in terms of trying to assess what happened in the past, lessons learned, and how moving forward can be improved to the extent the past, just like in life, the past is always something that you learn from, and I believe that there's always room for improvement and always room for learning. But what I meant to say is I'm a person who likes to move forward, assess the issues, and address where we are today and going forward in a positive way.
Because in the area of the health insurance area, I see in my crystal ball and what's happening, great volatility. So the past is very important as a lesson moving forward through what looks to be a minefield. So, I mean, you have my support, but I just wanted to clarify that.
Sure.
My head kind of cocked back when you said that.
Appreciate that, Senator. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator LaValle. Senator Marcelino.
Well, as a Capricorn, as my colleague Senator Spino said, that explains a lot. One who was born in Brooklyn, raised in Queens, and lived and raised his family on Long Island, attended New York University, so fellow alumni of that great institution, and my son and uncle attended NYU Law School, traders, dogs, became lawyers. I know. I was privileged to be appointed to the governor's task force on not-for-profits early on in the governor's first term. And we were looking at not-for-profit organizations, of which there are something like 250,000 in this state. People do not understand or realize the number of not-for-profit organizations that actually exist. They run from little leagues, which are relatively small, and take a relatively small amount of money, to huge corporate entities like hospitals and so forth, with multiple hospitals under the purview. The highest paid salaried individual, I believe, in New York State is head of a not-for-profit hospital organization. I will not name it. That person earns $10 million per. The range, as I said, goes from no salaried employees to $10 million, huge. there's an awful lot of room for abuse. And that was the point of the commission being set up. We had 2 meetings, and that was it. Done. I always thought that was a loss, and because there's an opportunity for fraud there, and there's an opportunity for all kinds of bad things to happen. Also, a lot of opportunities for very good things to happen. Many of the nonprofits do very good work, and I think they should be commended. But the ones that abuse the privilege and the perks that come with the arrangement should be discovered, found, and stopped. Is there a plan? Is there something in your tenure as commissioner of this particular agency, which as the controlling entity here, to stop this or to get into these not-for-profits?
Yeah, Senator, I don't really have jurisdiction over nonprofits. The Attorney General has, and when I was in the Attorney General's office, the Charities Bureau, that's the enforcer and the oversight of non-for-profits. To the extent, and I mentioned nonprofits in connection with, I think, Health Republic, because it was not a for-profit entity, which is sort of unique under the Affordable Care Act. To the extent hospitals are nonprofits, and they obviously contribute to the costs of health insurers. I regulate the health insurers and have the prior approval authority of health insurance rates, but I don't directly regulate the hospitals, although those issues and certainly the costs that the health insurance industry incurs, is something that we at DFS look at in assessing the requested rates that come to us, but as I said, we don't have that direct oversight on that issue.
Rather than pursue this now, perhaps when you go back to the agency, and I look forward to supporting your position as commissioner on the floor. We can have a conversation down the road.
Be happy to.
As to whatever happened and how the governor decided to use this commission, whatever happened to it, and how it could possibly be reinstituted, because I do think there is an important effort that has to be made.
Be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Ransom Hopper.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Welcome. I'm glad that the chair allowed you to elaborate a little bit on your background, your resume, and rather experience and education to working with the law firms in the world. It's just a real and that's extraordinarily proud of the organization today and accomplished. I wanted to talk about, and I represent an area in Buffalo, Rochester, so you have a call as it is. And one of the things that has been going on in our area, but also statewide, is we talk about consolidation of First Niagara and also
Quebec.
And I just wanted to know what the policy has been, what your position is on that. Those are two very large institutions, which a lot of people in my community work at, and it is concerned about what's happening with that merger, and very foresee that going into your
So the members at the end of the table, the question is about the merger regarding Key Bank and First Niagara Banks in the Buffalo region, and what Ms. Bullo's role would be in those proceedings.
Right. So I share the concerns about that merger and what it would do to the, lessened competition in those areas for banking services. Both of those institutions, however, are federally chartered, and so I do not have oversight authority over them because they're federally chartered. First Niagara does own not majority, but does own a mortgage servicer that I do regulate. And we are looking at whether that might give us some ability. But unfortunately, I don't have approval authority over that merger like I would if they were state chartered. What I would like to see is more state chartered banks providing the services not only to Rochester and Buffalo, but to other places as well. But you know, if the bully pulpit means anything, I share your concerns. And just at this moment, because I did look at that when I learned about that, and unfortunately, don't believe that I have approval authority over that merger.
The reason I ask is because the governor had.
I'm familiar with that, yes.
Comments on
He
that.
has.
And that's why I was wondering whether you would feel agency in the direction had done anything else than just allowed.
I am very aware of the concerns that he has raised, and as I said, looked at whether we can do anything, and we did find, you know, that there is a subsidiary, or I should say, an ownership interest in an entity that we regulate, and we'll see. But as I said, I share those concerns. What I'd love to see is other of our state chartered banks filling in some of the gap. But I think it's going to be the federal authorities and the Justice Department that would be looking and assuming that reserve of the OCC.
Second question I had, I wanted to ask you about the point that you are a hero where you were able to get yourself through school. Luckily came from a time where I was able to come through law school and not a lot of debt. And what's happening now is I'm sure you've read, that student loan debt far exceeds credit card debt. We don't know what our third party will have in terms of fair representation to students who are taking out loans from financial service companies, from banks, you know, with the expectation that, you know, they're going to be able to get a job that will pay off their student loan in a reasonable amount of time. And I know this kind of dovetails into education as well. But what responsibility is it for your department when regulating banks and monitoring banks when, you know, they are loaning students that are eventually graduates coming out with a tremendous amount of student loan debt, but really not being provided by banks, that they're not going to, you know, that it's going to take them 30 years to pay off that debt. They're not going to be able to get that kind of a job. And there feels certain responsibility on the part of the banks to form borrowing students that they are going to be in prospective hot water and financial difficulty, having, you know, taken on these debts through installments for certain banks without really having the ability to pay it off. So what is your response?
That is, I mean, I had a fair amount of debt when I started out, and why I took the first job that I took and then wound up staying 27 years. But we have at DFS a student protection unit. We certainly have a role in ensuring that students, when, you know, the banks that we regulate are providing loans. We also have actually a regulation regarding financial aid, which requires a specific sheet that the institutions of higher education must provide to the students on what the costs are going to be, and sort of a disclosure issue. We are looking at what more we can do in this area. It's obviously a huge issue, as there are institutions that claim to be of higher learning that might not be advertising appropriately to students in terms of what they are promising the students will get at the end after they get in debt. My authority is not obviously education, but in the sort of credit piece. And the other thing that we do at DFS, we have a large and highly capable consumer assistance unit, and we travel the state and educate. And we certainly will do that not only in this area, but on issues of financial literacy and elder abuse and those things. Are things that I very much want to not only continue the good work that's been done by the agency already, but to do even more. But it's a very important subject.
With our limited time, I'd like to explore that further in the future. Maybe get more impressed by your presentation today and what you're potentially having to support.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Redson. Senator Seward.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll try to be brief.